We are going to discuss the risk of that has to faced by the entrepreneurs. You know that the when you understand the definition is in this definition, you carefully analyze that the entrepreneur has to work in a risky environment with a limited resources, with uncertainty of whether the business is get succeed or not. So we have to understand the risk associated with the entrepreneurs. So we have to discuss what are the risks they have and how to mitigate the risk. You know that risk cannot be avoided. We can only do the mitigation, the risk. So risk cannot be avoided. So we can mitigate the risk. For an example, you get the life insurance, or you get the motor traffic insurance for your motorbike or your vehicle. What? Why you are going to get that one? One is the government has imposed a rule without an insurance you can't use the vehicle. Another one is you want to share the damage with the third party company. For that you are going to pay. So when you can't avoid the accident, but you can, if you meet with an accident, the cost that you have to bear can be shared with the third party company. That's why you are going to get the insurance for your vehicle or for your life. Likewise, the risk cannot be avoided, but we can mitigate the risk. And also, not like the vehicle or the life insurance, the entrepreneurs will not be able to get the insurance for their innovative works, because no one can assess whether this will be succeeded or not. In such case, the entrepreneurs have to work in a risky and uncertain environment. So we have to understand what are the risks and how to mitigate the risk by the entrepreneurs. So the risk associated with the future, how can you mute your mouse mic? Hello, can you mute your mic? Okay, then we have to discuss how to mitigate these risks. So first of all, let's try to understand what are the risks. So risk associated with the future, how decisions made at the present or past affect our lives or businesses. So actually, when we consider risks imply damages, losses, and or danger. So futuristic event. What are the futuristic event? Our future can be predicted with some amount of surety or probability. You can predict, and also you can predict whether it will rain today or it will rain tomorrow. You can give the percentage. 60% of chance of having the rain today. Likewise, future can be predicted with some amount of surety or probability. And sometimes the future may be totally uncertain. So when entrepreneurs will face this one, when they innovate a certain product or service, analyzing the customers' unmet or unsatisfied need, sometimes they will not accept that product because of a certain reason. Sometimes the features may not match with their requirement, or else the shape or the difficulty of handling that product. There may have several reasons. So when you develop or when you innovate something, there may have a certain amount of probability of not accepting the product or service. That is called the risk. If the accept probability is greater than 70 or 80, that means you can get a success of introducing that product. So sometimes the future may be totally uncertain, as I told you. Also, risks come from our decisions and uncontrollable events. Some events can be controlled and some events cannot be controlled. And also the decision that we are going to that we get also will cause for this risks. So for an example, get this: I buy a share because it has 70% probability that its price will rise when you do the share. When you are going to buy the shares from the share market, you will analyze the future. You will analyze the past data, and also you can predict that the 70% or 60% or 90% of chance that the price will rise in the next few days. And those who do the transactions in the forex also, you can see that the clearly graph shows how fluctuate the prices of the forex shares. So when you consider if there is a 70% probability of price will increase, but don't forget that there may have a 30% chance that price falls or remain the same, remain unchanged. So that we have to give our concentration for this 30%. And when you consider the risk can be divided into two, that is pure risk and speculative risk. So what are these pure risks? Pure risks also, once again, we can divide into two: static risk and dynamic risk, as well as the speculative risk also can be divided into two: static risks and dynamic risks. Okay. So what are these pure risks? Pure risks, that is damage by fire. We have experienced tsunami and also floods, thunders, earthquakes likewise. And speculative risk can produce either benefit or damage. Sometimes this speculative risk, having this speculative risk, sometimes it can be got the benefit or else a certain damage. So both of these types of risk can be divided, the static and the dynamic. So we'll understand. Consider this example and see what are the precautions that you want to take to mitigate the risk. Suppose that you are going to you are going on a trip to the let's say Jaffna or Trinco with your girlfriend, or if you are married, with your spouse, by your car. Before you start the trip, so what you have to do, for an example, days before you start the trip, so you have to go to the garage and check the car engine checked by a mechanic, and also you better to change the oils, and also see the water radiator and the water fluid levels, and you better to check the tires and also the spare wheel, whether the spare wheel is in a good condition with the jack, and also the fuel, you have to get the full tank of the fuel of the car and get the car checked by a mechanic or any other experts before starting the tour. That is, so why you are going to do? Why you are going to check this one? So you are going to mitigate the risk you have. If there is a puncture in the tire and you have checked the jack is there as well as the spare wheel is in a good condition and is there. So, and fuel, you need not to get the fuel station until the destination sometimes if you have the full tank. So while you are leaving there, you will have to once again get the full tank to have the smooth journey. Otherwise, you will have to have some problems. Those are the risks and the precautions that you can get. So, likewise, you can apply for the business. What are the risks? There may have some financial risks, or else sometimes if you have a subordinate or the co-workers, sometimes if they leave at once, what would happen? You can't run your business. In such case, how you are going to do that? And also, when your business is growing, you will have to prepare the business continuity plan. Business continuity plan, actually this is one of the good document like business plan. The business continuity plan explains all those things. What are the risks you have, and also how to mitigate those risks. And the business continuity plan actually revise once in 6 months time. And also every one of the company must know the content of the business continuity plan, and each one of the company is responsible for a certain task. So in that plan, you have to address what are the pure risks, what are the speculative risks, and how to mitigate those risks. So whether, for an example, I have heard that one leading businessman in Sri Lanka, he has several factories all over the world. When you first select the place for the factory, he specially see whether that area has the earth slips, earthquakes, as well as near to the sea, because he has some experience of the tsunami. And if the place that he select closer to the sea, sometimes there may have some damages, so that he always select the place by seeing that one. So why? To mitigate the risks. So when you consider this static risks occurs when the risk causing event remain unchanged for long period of time. For an example, damage due to the lightning, death, etc. Business operation in the stable business environment face statistics. So to mitigate this static risk, the company must decide when it first establish the place, and lightning, if that area is identified as the lightning damages, so that you have to get some precautions of having what we call the earths from the having some anti-lightning or surge resistors in your electrical systems to mitigate the damage, or else you have to have some different precautions, because in the technology there are some precautions for that one. If the lightning happens, what would happen? Your devices, your equipments will damage, so that you can mitigate that one also. And for the devices, you can get the insurance also. If this happens, you can mitigate, you can share the damage with the third party. The dynamic risks occurs when the risk causing event change over the time. Frequent development in technology. So you know that when you consider the computer device hardware, the lifetime of the hardware is very short. That means the technology will introduce the new devices or changes for a few short period of time. Normally it's called after 18 months the new technology will come, technology will double. So having that development, sometimes the machinery as well as the computer cannot be used after a certain time. That also the risk. And legislature as well as changes in consumer behavior as well as represent dynamic risks. Not only that, when you consider the country's behavior, for an example, you know that we had the tsunami, now we are facing the COVID-19. So in such that pandemic situations also, there may have some dynamic risks for the companies. The companies never expected these risks earlier. So steps in risk management. So we have to understand what are the steps that we can take for managing these risks. First of all, you have to identify what are the risks and risk generating points. Especially you have to understand the risks and risk generating points. And how can you identify the risks and risk generating point? Changes the behavior of the customer. How you can identify? Can it be easily identified? You have to continuous market survey to identify the changes of the customer. So according to the changes, unless you change your product or service, sometimes you will face some damages for the business. They are not accepting your product. So then, not only that, get some other risks. For an example, recently you are facing labor turnover. What is this labor turnover? That means your workers of the company will leave the company and find new jobs. Then you have to think why it happens. Sometimes they are they have some offers from the similar companies with high rate, high salary, or else your benefits are not enough and your salary is not enough for them. So you have to clearly understand their requirements and do some precautions. You can increase the salary, or else discuss with them and give some benefits for them. By doing this, you can mitigate that risk also. Not only that, they may have some different risk while you are managing the company. So then evaluate the risk in terms of frequency of occurrence, severity, probability of occurrence. So you have to understand the frequency of occurrence, how often it occurs. For an example, when you get the tsunami, we have experience of having that one after 100 years time. So then frequency is very low, but if it happens, the damage is very high. So frequency of severity and the probability of occurrence, you have to analyze using these three parameters and select the risk management technique. Then you can't use the same management technique for the all risks. You have to select the right management technique for the right risks and implement and review the decision. Then you have to implement and review the decision. So you have to have some agreement. So then these days the country has some strike, different work groups. So what are the precautions for that one? The government would have taken a decision to establish the salary commission and go through all these requirements through salary commission, and by discussing with the employers, then it can be solved. So but they haven't done it, and because of that now we are facing these strikes. So likewise, select the management techniques and implement it and review the decision. Before the risk happen, before the incident happen, we have to get the precautions. So likewise, when you run the business, we have to take such decisions. If a certain workers will resign, will leave the company, how you are going to fill that gap? In such case, you have to have a certain management techniques for that one to keep that worker, or else if let him to leave and get a new one. So simple example, suppose that you are planning to pleasure to an eastern coast destination by car. You will travel with your spouse only. So identify the risk points and the times. What would you do to minimize those risks? Then I discuss this example before, so I am not going to discuss once again. And you can identify the risk points, and also you have some precautions to minimize those risks. How would you determine the risk point? Let's say identification of risky event is done by expert opinion. So sometimes you can get some expert opinions from the experts, or else from your experience or statistical or probability analysis. You can get the help of the specialist or the experts to get the decision for this, identify this risks event. That's why when you can analyze the companies, those companies prepare the business continuity plan. To prepare this business continuity plan, they hire experts. So they hire experts, and experts come and first see the business process, and what are the factories or what are the machinery they have, what would be the labor force, and what is the top management, and they analyze each and every component of the company, and then they prepare the business continuity plan. For an example, suppose that you are conducting a software company. Get this example and answer how you are going to mitigate the risks. So you have different uh, you have the software engineers, database system administrators, database administrators, tech leads, and junior software engineers and programmers. Consider that one. So one day your system administrator tells that he is going to resign by next month, and he has given the resignation letter. In such case, what you are going to do first? As soon as he hand over the letter, if you are a managing director or the managing director of the company, what you are going to do first? Can someone answer? I will open that question for all of you, then you can answer. How? If your key person is going to resign from the company, what you are going to do? So I expect that someone will answer this question. No one is going to answer. First of all, most of the company practice that the user accounts of the critical sites, for an example, database server, and also if there is system, the server that install the systems, then must stop of accessing those critical information, and only he will allowed to do the emails only, but stop accessing the critical servers first. So I will tell the example. Recently not actually 3-4 months before, someone deleted all the files of the drug, one of the institutes related to the health ministry about drugs, by a certain developer. So he has developed 1.1 million records from the servers, and he told that he by mistake deleted, but when analyzed the time that he deleted, he has used more than 6 or 7 hours to delete those data from the server. When you analyze his history, he has given the resignation letter 1 month before or 3 weeks before to resign from the company, but the company hasn't removed the passwords, usernames and password from the critical servers. So before he leaving the company, he wanted to delete that file. So that will be a huge risk, and that company also one of the multinational, one of the famous IT company. So they didn't use that risk mitigation techniques. So if they would use that one, they could have saved from the huge damage, and ultimately they have to go to the prison, and someone was in prison, 2 or 3 person was in prison, and they had still the case is going on. So why they didn't stop all the accesses of the critical servers from that employee who is going to resign recently? That's one good example we have, but they haven't done the risk mitigation techniques. So another one, For example, the identification of the risk event is done expert. Like as I told you, for example, a farmer may consult the weather bureau, that is the expert, for the rain forecast. The meteorological department will forecast the rain and tell you whether it will rain next week or it will rain tomorrow or likewise. Some farmers predict the rain by experience. They are not going for the meteorological department. They predict by experience, by appearance of the some birds types, noise of the fogs, etc. They normally forecast or predict whether it will rain. You can calculate the probability of petrol price going up by statistical analysis. When you analyze the world market prices as well as the shipping charges and other things, you can predict whether the fuel price will go up or rise or not. So then likewise you can calculate. So another one, sometimes to face these risks, as the government get different decisions. For an example, there's a high risk of increasing the oil price frequently. In such case, if the government has money, they are going to store the fuel for future use. And if the price is rising, they don't mind, and they can use the existing storage for there. So likewise, as the government also sometimes we get the decisions to mitigate the risks and transfer your risks to someone else. Another one is transfer the risk to someone else. This is often done through the insurance. As I told you at the beginning of this lecture, why you are going to get the health insurance, life insurance, as well as the why you are going to get the motor traffic insurance for your vehicle. That is, if some incident happens, you are going to share your risk with a third party company. That's why the reason. So changes other sources of losses and borrow the cost or losses pay for the long period. Sometimes you will have to pay for the premium for the insurance for several years, but there is no any incident happen. That is why the behavior of the insurance companies. So the life insurance also sometimes they when they provide the life insurance, they get your health records and see whether you are in good health before issuing the life insurance. When we manage the risk, we have to understand this diagram to analyze and find the precautions. So risk can be frequency of occurrence. We can categorize the risk according to frequency of occurrence and severity of losses. Frequency is low and frequency is high, low, medium or high. Severity of losses also low and high. Consider that here in this case, high losses, less frequency. High losses, less frequency. Low losses, low frequency. Low losses, low frequency. This is one high losses, high frequency, and low losses, high frequency. We can categorize the risk from this diagram. High losses, less frequency. What are the high losses and less frequency? This risk happens after 100 years time, but if it happens, the losses will be very high. One of the good example is tsunami. But in a company, according to the company, you can do this one. The frequency sometimes uh, if the tsunami has the 100 years frequency, but in your company you have to analyze the period. Sometimes the less frequency is once in a year or once in a month sometimes. The low losses, low frequency. So damage is less, but the frequency of occurrence also less. We can find some events having this one. So we need not to give the highest weight for this one. We need not to get the highest weight for the low loss and low frequency. According to the business, you can categorize. If, for an example, if you do the highly inflammable business like the petrol sheds and core products, what would happen? If it is a consider the gasoline stand or the petrol shed. So high losses and high frequency. So you have to have some precautions according to this one. The catching the fire may have the high frequency, but if it catches the fire, the damage also high. According to the business, actually we can categorize low losses, high frequency. Consider the thundering also sometimes, unless you have got some precautions for your electrical systems or to the building, sometimes you may have high losses. And the frequency also once in a year, not frequently, not every day, not every month, sometimes for the monsoon season only. So you can categorize the risk having this one and analyze. Here are some examples. Events, and also you can analyze the recently happened the gas problem in Sri Lanka. So you can analyze it also. Events, loss if the event occurred, probability of occurrence, expected losses. Fire gutting, loss if the event occurred, 1 million. Probability of occurrence is 0.9 and expected loss is 90,000. Outstanding the stock, due to certain reasons, the outstanding the stocks, losses, if event losses is 2 million, probability of occurrence is 0.5. In such case, 1 million loss will occur because probability is high. Delay or loss of suppliers, sometimes you may have some delay, you can't supply in time, and this will happen for especially the garment field, because you know that not like Sri Lanka but other countries, they have the 4 seasons: winter, autumn, summer, likewise. So they are using the different clothes, different garment for each season. What would happen? The winter season, winter clothings will deliver in the summer. What would happen? Delay of supplies. In such case, those summer, during the summer, the winter clothes cannot be sold. There is a high loss due to the delay of the company, the delay of the garment company, that they couldn't supply the garments in time. In such case, they have the losses. So delay of loss of suppliers, 0.01 in 5,000. Delays in distribution, 2 million, and probability is 1 point and 200,000. Likewise, you can calculate the total loss if the event occurred, 5,500,000, and also expected losses 1,295,000. Likewise, when you calculate the probability of occurrence, and you can calculate the expected losses of the company. This is simple example I explain how to calculate the how to manage the risk. So you have to give the highest weight of this one, because 0.5, that is almost half. In such case, how to remove these outstanding stocks? You have to give the highest weight for this one and mitigate, reduce this amount expected losses as much as you can. So next one is what are the critical risk event that the action can you take to minimize the risks? That is this one, outstanding stock. So these are some major risk producing events. One is improper evaluation of the business idea. So as entrepreneurs, as innovators, and also the business, when you are going to do the business, you have to have a good knowledge of evaluation of the business idea, whether it is worth or the profitable, or what are the weaknesses of this may have. Likewise, you have to evaluate of the business idea. There may have the plenty of business ideas, but all these ideas cannot be implemented. You have to select, you know that the procedure of selecting, you have to analyze in different ways the legal aspects and the technological aspects and the financial aspects, marketing, everything you have to consider when you are going to analyze the business idea. And commencing the businesses without a core competency or acquiring core competencies. What is this core competency? Core competency means the knowledge, the experience or the competency you have. So if normally it is still that if to make a success of the business, it must have the core competency and core market share, core competency of the people who are working that one. For an example, if you want to start a software company, definitely you have to have a good knowledge of the technology as well as the software development process. And when you want to get the work done from the people, first of all, you have to have a knowledge and core market share. When you are going to develop the software, certain software, you have to analyze the market segment you have. Who are your customers? Unless you have a customer segment, market share, you may face some difficulties of selling those software products. If you have a client and you are developing the software for that client, you may have the less risk of marketing that software products. Not only the software, but when you consider the other, also the agriculture technology students also can see how they are going to market their products. So what are the demands that those products has? Likewise, you have to analyze, especially the organic products may have a good market now. So the competency is very, very important. But if you have the competency of get the work done from the people, you can success from your business. Then issues created by partners and inventors. Issues created by the partners and inventors. Sometimes if you have a business partner and they always struggle that your company is not making profits, you may have some problems. When you consider when you read the history of the Amazon bookstore, they couldn't profit the Amazon bookstore for starting from 5 years time. So there was no any profits. So the partners or the shareholders always struggle, but uh, the but by introducing the online bookstore as well as the Amazon Web Services, the gradually the company is going up, and now it has become the number one of the world, or number two, last year number one of the one company in the world. So even though for the first few years, unless they have some profits, if the company can survive with the break even, it seems that for the next few years, definitely the company will success. So departure of the skilled personals, as I told you, sometimes if the company is not making any profit and running at a loss, the employees may have a risk of their jobs. So they will most of the skilled personnel will leave the company, or else they find different jobs. And also if the company is going well, but the company owner will not treat for their workers well, that also the reason, that also a reason of leaving the skilled workers from the company. The competitor moves also, and another reason for that. So there may have some several reasons for that. මම කෝල් කරන්න මම ලෙක්චර් එකක් දැන්. ඇත්තද? එහෙනම් කවද්ද පුළුවන් කිව්වේ? ඔයා පස්සේ මේ තව පැය 5කින් එන්න මම ඒතකොට මේක ඉවර කරලා තියන්න. Okay. Then these are the major risk producing events. Not only that, according to the business type you may have some different reasons for this. And let's see other factors. What are the other factors? And other factors are lack of customer orientation, and poor technology which affect quality, also poor customer servicing, and also poor customer servicing promoting customers to shift the competitor's product. Because of this poor customer service, it will encourage the customers to leave your products and use the competitor's product. So you can find those different reasons with weak training and development of the personnel, your personnel also, your staff. You are not, unless you give the continuous training and development, so they are using the old methods. So that also a risk. And financial risk, actually obtaining the excessive loans and poor loan management. Why? Your income is less, but you are going to get the loans from the banks, and ultimately at the end of the month the loan installments is greater than the income and or the profit. In such case, the company cannot survive. So that when you get the draw the loan from the banks, you will have to analyze. You will